Welcome back, fight fans. You know the deal. Analysis and predictions for the 5 fights on the main card. This time for UFC 237 coming up this Saturday, May 11th. Main event, Rose Namajunas versus Jessica Andrade. Let's kick it off with the first fight. I'm going to run through the first two pretty quickly because I got quite a bit to say for the last 3 fights on this card. So, lightweight division, Francisco Trinaldo versus Diego Ferreira. Francisco is 40 years old, 23-6 in his MMA career. Diego, 34 years old, 15-2 in his MMA career. Diego's the favorite, minus 170. Both these fighters are 5'8", but Diego's got a 4-inch reach advantage. And as always, guys, I like to go through a few main categories: striking, ground game, and mentality, in addition to things like physical attributes and whatnot. So, striking. Diego's got good striking, but Francisco's got the clear advantage here. He's a Brazilian kickboxing champion. Ground game, sort of the polar opposite. Clear advantage to Diego. He is a legit third-degree Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt. Interesting enough, though, he doesn't have a single submission victory since 2014. So out of his 5 previous wins, 3 of them have come by knockout and 2 of them have come by decision. So I looked into it, though. I watched a few of his fights, and it turns out some of those KOs were just ground and pound. So that he was utilizing his jiu-jitsu, he was controlling his opponents on the ground, but instead of deciding to finish them via submission, he gave them a beating and got it done that way. So good on him. So the mentality going into this fight, confidence, momentum, things of that nature. Francisco's kind of showing his age. He's 2-2 in his last 4 fights, whereas Diego has won 4 fights in a row. So he lost 2 in a row, the only 2 losses of his career. One of them, the first one, was to Beneil Dariush, and the second was to the current interim champion, Dustin Poirier. So since then, he's been on a roll. He's won 4 in a row. He's got the confidence. He's got the momentum. I'm giving that edge to Diego in this fight. So, prediction, I think he's going to break this little streak of his since 2014. Give me Diego via a second-round submission in this one. Fight number 2 on this card out of the welterweight division, Thiago Pitbull Alves versus Laureano El Matador Staropoli. Thiago's 35 years old. He's 23-13 in his MMA career. Laureano, 26 years old, 8-1 in his MMA career. Staropoli's got a 4-inch height advantage against Thiago, but I'm not sure what his reach is. I actually couldn't find that anywhere, so if any of you guys have any idea what Staropoli's reach is, comment below and let me know. So Vegas odds for this fight, it's actually a pick'em, both minus 115, so I thought that was kind of interesting. I'll touch on that here in a second. But let's go through the 3 main categories: striking, ground game, and mentality, and then I'll give you my prediction here. So Thiago, 13 knockouts out of his 23 wins. So he's got a lot of power. He's also built, like his nickname states, kind of like a pit bull, while Laureano has 5 knockouts out of his 8 wins. Laureano's output is significantly higher than that of Alves's, though. So Laureano lands over 6.5 significant strikes per minute versus Thiago, who's just at 3.7. So Laureano's constantly moving forward and throwing punches and bunches. Thiago mixes it up better, though. I thought a very interesting statistic about Thiago was that 35% of his significant strikes landed were leg kicks. So that's over 1 out of 3 significant strikes via leg kicks. So compared to just 11% for Staropoli. Staropoli's output, though, I feel like versus an aging Thiago is going to be the difference here on the feet. Thiago, again, ton of power, mixes it up well, punches, leg kicks, but I just think Staropoli's punches and bunches is going to be the tell of the tape here. Ground game. Thiago Alves is a brown belt. in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, which is significant, but he only has one submission victory in his career. So out of 36 fights, 23 of those victories, he only has one submission. So although I think that could be a path to victory for Thiago, I just don't think that's going to be an area of Staropoli's game in which he's going to be able to exploit. Staropoli, just in his short MMA career, 8 wins. He's got 2 of those via submission. So he already has more submission victories than Thiago does. So I just, the technique is significant there, but I don't think that Thiago is going to be able to exploit that part of Staropoli's game. I'm going to give the edge on the ground to Staropoli just because of his execution. So the mentality for this fight, Thiago Alves over the last 10 years has lost more fights than he's won. So he's 6-8 over his last 14 fights dating back 10 years. He's just 2-4 in his last 6 fights, and his most recent fight, it was actually a win over Max Griffin via split decision, was a very, very arguable decision for Thiago. And so in his last 6 fights, it's very possible that he could or maybe should be sitting at just 1-5. And so he's a shell of himself. He's always a very dangerous guy. But he's a shell of what he used to be, and I think his mental approach to this fight is I just don't think his confidence is there, is what I'm trying to say. I just don't think the confidence is there. So Laureano, though, he's 26 years old. He's a really hungry fighter. He's 8-1 in his MMA career. He's on the rise. He's just getting into his prime here in the next year or two. And so, although, he is fighting on Thiago's home soil, Laureano trains out of Brazil. I think he's either Argentinian or Venezuelan. I forget. But he actually trains out of Brazil. So it's familiar territory for him, too. I don't know if that's going to be such a disadvantage fighting in Brazil for Laureano against Thiago. So anyway, 6-fight win streak, finished 5 of those fights. Ironically, his first fight in the UFC was his only decision. So he's clearly facing tougher competition nowadays. I think that's why this fight might be a pick'em. But I've got to give the confidence and the momentum, the mental edge to Laureano in this fight. So let's get to the prediction. Give me Laureano Staropoli by unanimous decision. The third fight of the night. Probably looking forward to this fight more than any other fight on the card. Out of the featherweight division, we've got the number 1 contender, Jose Aldo, versus number 4, Alexander the Great Volkanovski. Jose's 32 years old, 28-4 in his MMA career. Alex, 30 years old, 19-1. Jose is the favorite in this fight, minus 140. Jose has proven to be the same Jose Aldo that tore apart the featherweight division and that we all fell in love with. So other than, the Conor fight and the 2 Max Holloway fights, Jose just beats everybody. He's coming off 2 knockout victories over Jeremy Stevens and Renato Moicano. And if he gets a victory over number 4, Alex Volkanovski, he's looking at another title shot. So the same can be said about Alexander Volkanovski, though. He's won 16 fights in a row, coming off of a TKO win over Chad Mendes. And if he can make it 17 in a row, beating the number 1 contender, Jose Aldo, I can guarantee you that Alexander Volkanovski's getting the next shot at the title. So these guys are very evenly matched. Jose's got a 1-inch height advantage. Alex has a 1.5-inch reach advantage. So looking at striking in this fight, Alex has really good technique, a great jab, great cardio, mixes it up well with punches, elbows, knees, kicks. I really like his striking abilities. Jose is, of course, an excellent Muay Thai fighter with lightning quick legs, hands, and mixes it up very, very well. He's just an excellent combination of speed and power. So Volkanovski's output, though, is significantly higher than that of Jose Aldo. So Volkanovski lands 6 significant strikes per minute compared to Jose's just 3.5. And I think that's going to play a major factor in this fight. That's mostly due to Volkanovski's forward pressure. And so, in the Chad Mendes fight, Chad was successful with his leg kicks and his counterpunching. And I think Jose Aldo is better than Chad at both of those things. And so I think Jose can find some success there. But in Jose's 2 losses against Max Holloway, it was Max's forward pressure and overwhelming volume that ultimately led to the demise of Jose Aldo. And I think Alexander the Great Volkanovski is going to do just that. He's going to bring relentless forward pressure and volume to Jose Aldo. So looking at the ground game, though, Alexander's a brown belt in BJJ and has 3 submission victories in his MMA career, 16% of his wins. Jose's a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, but over his 28 wins, he only has 1 submission. I found that I knew that from his last fight, but I was sort of shocked at that statistic again. So Alex has great wrestling, though. Chad Mendes was a 2-time NCAA All-American wrestler and could not keep Volkanovski on the ground for more than 10 seconds at a time. He's just so compact and powerful and explosive that you can't keep him down on the ground. So Chad won the first round of that fight, but it was because he was unable to contain Alexander. Alexander's cardio was just too much. His forward pressure was too much. He was able to get up off the ground and continue to take the fight to Chad. He got the TKO victory in the second round. So although I think Jose is more technically sound on the ground, I've got to give the ground game advantage to Volkanovski in this fight. But with that said, I don't think any of what I just said about the ground game matters. I don't think this fight is going to spend more than 15 seconds on the ground. I think Jose and Alex are going to stand. If it goes 15 minutes, they're going to stand for 15 minutes in this fight. So my prediction for this fight. We've seen so many styles presented to Jose Aldo, and he's been able to pick apart all of them, except one-punch knockout from Conor McGregor and Max Holloway's forward pressure and volume. I think Alex is going to get the job done on Saturday night by doing the same thing. I think Alex's cardio, his relentless forward pressure, and the volume at which he's going to throw to Jose is just going to be too much. I was going back and forth on this prediction literally all day. I had written down Jose Aldo here and the reason why I thought he was going to win this fight. I erased it all and I went with Alexander Volkanovski. I think this is going to be a really good fight. It's got absolutely the potential to be fight of the night, but because of those reasons, relentless forward pressure, cardio, and volume, and toughness, by the way, we saw Chad get this close to knocking out Alex, and it just wouldn't happen. So he's got a hell of a chin, too. So I think toughness as well. I think Alexander Volkanovski is getting it done on Saturday night over Jose Aldo. All right, fourth fight of the night. Out of the middleweight division, Anderson the Spider Silva, number 14, versus number 10, Jared the Killer Gorilla Cannonier. Jared's 35 years old, he's 11-4. Anderson, 44 years old, 34-9. Who would have thought the 35-year-old guy would be 9 years younger than his opponent? So Cannonier is the -160 favorite in this fight. Anderson, he's 3 inches taller, 5'11", versus 6'2", but the reach is identical. So Jared he's crazy. He went from heavyweight to light heavyweight, and now he's at middleweight. This is his second fight at middleweight. So although he's 2-3 over the course of his last 5 fights, those 3 losses were all at light heavyweight. And so his last fight against David Branch at middleweight, he got the TKO victory very early on in the second round. And so I think this was probably a very good move for him. And he looks like a monster at middleweight, Cannonier does. So Anderson's obviously coming off of a loss via decision to the current interim champion, Israel Adesanya. And I was actually pretty impressed with how good Anderson looked in that fight against such a talented Israel Adesanya. So looking at striking, Anderson's one of the best of all time. Okay, so he's 44 years old, sure, but he is one of the best strikers in any division of all time. Jared Cannonier just has cannons in his arms and legs, and so just a significant power advantage for Jared Cannonier, whereas Anderson Silva has a significant technical advantage to striking in this fight. Statistically speaking, though, what I thought was very surprising was Jared actually has a higher output and better defense than Anderson Silva does. Even watching their fights, I still find that hard to believe, but statistically speaking, Jared has a higher output and better defense as far as absorbing significant strikes than Anderson Silva. So, again, technically speaking, Anderson's got the advantage. When it comes to power and knockout capability in this fight, Jared has the advantage. Ground game, Silva's got the advantage. He is a legit third-degree Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt, whereas Jared really has no significant wrestling or Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu experience. He started training MMA and has no specialty when it comes to the ground game. And as a matter of fact, his grappling game is kind of weak. And so I think that's an area that Anderson Silva can really expose. I hope that's part of his game plan here, given the power that Cannonier has on his feet. I think a pathway to victory for Anderson Silva in this fight is on the ground if he can get it there. So, my prediction for this fight, like the last one, I had written down both of these fighters and why I thought they would win, and was ready to go with one, and then I changed it to the other, and then back to the other. And so here's the thing. I think in this fight, you either think that Anderson Silva is getting knocked out or he's going to win this fight. I don't think Jared Cannonier is going to beat Anderson Silva via decision. Anderson is just more technical on the feet. He's got good defense. He mixes it up really well. Even just with leg kicks, for example, he could outpoint Jared Cannonier via leg kicks and counters and little combinations here. I know I said statistically Cannonier has higher volume, but in this fight, I just don't think that that's going to be the case. And so I also think on the ground, if this ever goes to the ground, Anderson Silva can finish him or maybe just control him for a while. And so I really think that Jared is sort of one-dimensional in this fight. I think he's either going to knock Anderson Silva out, maybe even out cold, or Anderson's going to get the victory. So for the sake of the UFC gods and an incredible match that night in front of his home crowd, guys, I'm going to make the unpopular pick here. I'm going to pick the underdog in Anderson the Spider Silva. I think he avoids the big power of Jared Cannonier, and I think he gets it done via decision. And that takes us to our main event, ladies and gentlemen, for the strawweight championship. The champion, Thug Rose Namajunas versus Jessica the Pile Driver Andrade. Rose is 26 years old. She's 8-3 in her MMA career. Jessica is 27 years old, 19-6 in her career. Jessica is the favorite in this fight, the favorite over the champion in this fight. Rose, she's got a 3-inch height advantage and a 3-inch reach advantage. Both fighters have won 3 fights in a row. So let's take a look at striking, ground game, and mentality. Jessica has huge power and presses forward the entire time. She's got one-punch knockout power, as we saw in the Carolina fight, where it was a right hook and Carolina was out. And that's very rare for the women's strawweight division. It's actually very rare for all women's division. You just don't see one-punch knockouts a whole lot. So she also has significant output. So she lands over 6.5 significant strikes per minute, compared to Rose, who's at just 3.7. But I see holes in her game. Jessica, she's sloppy, and her defense is not great. Her reach isn't very long, and so she's got to press forward and close the distance if she wants to land punches and bunches. And when she does that, she likes to just swing wild. She kind of reminds me of like a female Vanderlei Silva, to be honest with you. And so I think Rose is one of the most perfect opponents to exploit that, kind of like Joanna was, who beat Jessica. She opens herself up and she takes punches. And so I think that Rose, she's got knockout power too. I mean, just rewind the tape to her first fight against Joanna, left hook, lights out. So she's got knockout power as well, but she is more of a technical striker, and she's very, very smart, Rose is. And she comes in with great game plans, and I think if she's able to keep her distance in this fight, she has the striking advantage. Jessica's got the power advantage, but Rose has the striking advantage in this fight. So looking at the ground game, Jessica has really good wrestling, as we saw in the Tisha Torres fight. She's short, stocky, powerful, has excellent cardio, and really good wrestling. She's also a brown belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and she has 7 submission victories in her career, 37% of her wins. But Rose is a brown belt too. Out of her 8 wins, she's got 5 submission victories, which is good for 63% of her wins. So I think the jiu-jitsu is sort of a wash in this fight, and I think it comes down to takedowns and control. And I give the edge there to Jessica. She lands more takedowns. She has a higher takedown defense rate. She's powerful, relentless cardio. I think she could give Rose some trouble on the ground. So advantage Jessica, ground and pound. Mentality. This is something that Rose has admitted to having issues with at times. She's also, this one's not going to be easy for her to keep her cool. She's been doing a great job of that lately, looking back to the previous 2 fights against Joanna. But she's coming off of a neck surgery. She hasn't fought in over a year. She's going down to Brazil to face the #1 contender, who's a killer. And those fans are crazy, and they're going to be supporting Jessica like hell. This one's going to be a tough one to prepare for. And I think that Jessica, she's fighting the champ. Like, what do I have to lose? I got to go out there and give everything that I got. And I've got the crowd behind me. I think that the mental advantage here, confidence, I think that you've got to give the edge to Jessica. So my prediction for the fight. I can see why Jessica's the favorite in this fight. For all of the reasons that I just went through, her power, cardio, wrestling, home field advantage, I can really understand why Jessica is the favorite in this fight. But I think that Rose Namajunas is one of the best all-around female mixed martial artists on the planet today. I think that I hope she's recovered from this neck injury, but she's gotten time off to gather herself and really prepare for this fight. Rose she's so well-rounded, and she's such a smart fighter. She has excellent coaching, and she always comes in with an excellent game plan. And because of the holes that I see in Jessica's striking and her lack of defense, I think that if it's going to come down to a lot of distance control in this fight. If Jessica's able to close the gap, I think Jessica's going to give Rose a lot of trouble. But I think if Rose keeps the distance, moves in, out, I think Rose is going to give Jessica a lot of trouble. And so I think if she sticks to the game plan on Saturday night, we're going to be hearing and still. She's going to be taking the belt back to the U.S. and still. So give me Rose Namajunas, 4th round submission. I think that'd be a fun one. But thank you guys, as always, for watching. If you haven't already, please subscribe to my channel. It means a lot. As always, though, I created this channel to interact with you guys and hear your thoughts and the back and forth as to who you think's going to win. So please comment below who you think's going to win, how you think they're going to win, and why you think that's the case. So thanks again, everybody, for watching. I'll see you next time.